Digest After Dark, unfiltered and uncensored talk with young alumni of historically black colleges and universities. Thanks for joining us for another edition here on the Sirius 142 HBCU radio network on the campus of Howard University. Got frat brother Eric back. Always a pleasure to have Alpha Phi Alpha in the house, and then Tiff, as of yet, not thrown off the show. So it's appropriate to start a conversation about Tiffany's alma mater, which is in the news courtesy of HBCU Game Day, for a breaking story about potential or alleged mistreatment of football players by first-year head coach Ron Prince. It was significant last week that standout quarterback Kayla Newton and a couple other players on the Bison football team essentially quit and said they were leaving the team. And today we have news from HBCU Game Day that several parents have complained to administration about player mistreatment. Very specific details, if you check it out on hbcugameday.com, about certain remarks Prince was making about player sexuality, accusing them of point shaving in the first game where they lost 79-0, and some other issues with failing to give them appropriate medical treatment and some other stuff. So it is certainly not to cast a negative light on Howard, which has indicated that they will be fully investigating the allegations, but it is to say a couple things. What is your take, first of all, on the incident, and what do you think that this does for MEAC football and HBCU football at large? Tiff, this is your school, so we will defer to you for your commentary.
You're funny. But honestly, and I read the letter, and clearly I don't talk about sports much, but in this context, dealing with what it is, I just think about how people who are abusive, they're not abusive to everybody, but the people that they tend to not abuse are people who are in power, who can place them in their next role. So, hello? What was that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh. So for me, I'm thinking about, is this his first time? And if it's not his first time, was Howard aware that maybe somewhere else where he was a coach, this was an allegation at some point? And if that is something that can be easily found and it's easily proven, why did we put him in a position to affect more students like that? Like, why? And why should these students' parents have to step in? We're talking about students who, yes, they're students, but they're also grown-ass people who feel that they can't do or say anything to defend themselves. I wish I would get hurt, and I wish somebody would tell me I can't go to the hospital, and I wish I would be dumb enough to tell my parents or my aunts who are doctors that somebody told me, oh, you're not going nowhere, or it's not that serious. Do you know Rosita, Walter, Raquel, and Renee would be right there? They're going to handle me first, make sure I'm good. Then they're going to get on whoever and then circle back to me because I dropped the ball on defending myself.
Well,
so no.
I would say it's a little bit different for sports, and maybe, Eric, you can weigh in on this, and particularly different for football, only because, one, it's a violent sport, and anybody who's ever played it knows that typically the line that you walk, particularly in a conversation with a coach about I can't play, is are you injured or are you hurt? And if you are hurt, depending on the degree of pain, you're expected to perform. If you're injured, you physically cannot do it. You physically can't make plays. You physically can't get out there on the field and do a repetition. I mean, and I'm sure we all know that, but I think that in the stage where this is allegations, I don't think you've heard from many players yet publicly, either affirming or adding to the story. And certainly I don't think that we've heard from Coach Prince because he just said, I don't know anything about these allegations. So I mean, with that in mind, Eric, what's your take on it?
Oh wait, I was in that.
Go ahead, Tiff. What'd you say?
Outside of that, like the allegations or talking to them about their personal lives and things like that, it's none of your business. But if they feel they can't even say it's none of your damn business because he's their coach, because he has all this authority over them, that's also a problem. Why do you care?
It could be. Eric, what do you think about it?
For me, the situation is it's a very serious allegation, and while that's being said, it's also very weird. And this is not a benefit of the doubt thing, because as somebody who's played football before, as somebody who's played sports before, just like you said, the difference between being injured and being hurt is very. It's almost like mum's the word, because at some point everybody playing hurt, right? That's at least the thought process.
Right.
What is interesting and weird to me is that, and I don't want to put all black mothers in the same category, but I don't know any black mothers that would have sent a letter anonymously if their child was being subjected to this type of treatment.
That's a point. Because people would have put their name, address, crossing date, year of graduation, all kinds of information. Like you gonna know who I am and who my baby is.
And like, I know it sounds like I'm joking, but at the same time, like I'm trying to wrap my head around, because it's not like Ron Prince has any clout. Like, let's be quite clear. Like, Howard University Bison football team is currently 1-4. They opened the season getting drummed 79-0. He has maybe 2-3 wins to write home about since he's been the head coach of Howard University's football team, and they've won literally 0 MEAC championships. He does not have any clout in his position, right? So it's not like we got to be quiet about him. Like, this is not the name. It's not the Dabo Sweeney of MEAC football, right? He's just not that guy.
I guess the impression would be because he has ties to the NFL.
But the ties to the NFL has not changed the production of your program or the recruits that you brought in. So miss me. So at the end of the day, I'm trying to figure out, and then even with all that being said, whose black mama really is going to care to send a note anonymously? Because I know some black mothers. I know a good amount of them. And I know if something like this was happening to their child, it'd have been like, oh no, here's my address. This is where you can come find me.
I guess the perception would be, if you send it and make it clear whose mother you are or whose father you are, is that you're now putting that child's scholarship in jeopardy. And part of the allegation was.
Let me make this quite clear. It would have been a twofold thing. One, you could say you're putting the child's scholarship at risk, but if the allegations become public,
right, then it's a whistleblower thing.
It's definitely a whistleblower type situation where it's like, oh, now you're definitely purposely coming after me because I told that you were abusing me. Mm-hmm. Right? So it would not have been that situation, right? Two, some black mothers would have been like, I don't care if you're on scholarship, I'm pulling you off the team.
Right.
So, and I say that to say that, yes, these allegations need to be looked into. They are very serious. But the whole situation, to me, at this juncture, seems extremely weird.
I think the takeaway for me is, having played, football coaches say a lot of weird stuff, man.
This is also a fact.
The first thing that they say a lot of crazy stuff. If you've ever been to a practice, I mean, in a session looking at film, they will say crazy stuff like, "Oh, y'all must be point shaving. That's how bad y'all look." So that was the first thing. Now there were some other implications about he's saying stuff about are one of y'all gay? That's over the line. That's over the line, because I don't think you need to bring that up at all in any context. But other things about medical treatment, I think we need some more information on that stuff. People being, there was a one detail about some players were made to sit in the stands and watch practice. I could see if somebody said that's abusive. You're humiliating me in front of people. This is an open practice.
But why should you not be at practice?
I think they're saying if you're hurt, then go sit up in the stands. Go be a fan. And I don't.
Context matters.
Right.
And I think I don't think feel that's like the overarching point.
And if you're able to be present at the practice, whether you're hurt or injured, or maybe you literally can't play for whatever reason, you should still be there because you're still part of the team.
See that's the challenge, because I think that with that, if you were to interview I don't know how many guys on the team, some of them, a pocket of them are going to say, yeah, that was over the line. This was abusive. A pocket of them are going to say, nah, I didn't think I didn't have a problem with it. Now you can blame that on a lot of things. You can say, okay, well, maybe these guys are conditioned to be abused. Maybe they had abusive high school coaches. Maybe they love that kind of coaching. And then the other hand, you can say, well, maybe some of those players are expecting to be coddled. I don't know, and I don't know if we'll get much more information. But you hear stuff like this all the time. You heard it with Maryland. A lot of those allegations surfaced when they had a football player to die, and they talked about, he won't let us get rest time, he won't let us get water, all these kind of things. You hear this stuff at programs all the time. And I guess the question is, or I think the thing that we have to remember is, how much of this is these are a group of players who may or may not have been at Howard because the previous coach recruited them. And there are sour grapes about a new guy, a new system, a new way of doing things coming in, running shop a totally different way. A guy that did not recruit them, that didn't sit in their living room, didn't talk to their parents, didn't say, I'll take care of your boy. So it's not to excoriate the players. It's not to excuse the players either. I just think I think we need more information at this point.
Yeah, and that's why, considering the other news that was coming out of Howard, especially regarding some of their players that are planning to transfer, the reasoning behind why they're transferring mattered.
Right.
Because we need more information, and we need exact information about what's taking place. Right. So a lot of times, of course, it looks very interesting because of timing. Right. But if a player was already planning to transfer out to give himself more aspirations, or if a player was going to transfer out because they're not seeing the field or any playing time, that's a much different situation than I'm leaving the school and the program because the coach is heavily abusive and he doesn't care about our health, and he's not allowed to tend to our issues. Because the unfortunate conversation about this is that talking about head football coaches and assistant football coaches who say inappropriate and sometimes demeaning and sometimes embarrassing things to head coaches is like talking about one organization with hazing allegations and leaving out the fact that if you go to another organization, those same allegations are going to exist.
Well, that's the other thing. This got to people's parents. It's not just one. Right, exactly.
It's not just one. Wait, it just hit me. And forgive me, everyone. It really just hit me. We're talking about shut down the A building and play Bitch Better Have My Money.
Hello.
Howard University.
Mm-hmm.
It waited until it got to somebody's parent.
Tiff, what's your response, Tiffany?
My response is,
because you hate when I send you that video. Every time I send you that video, you log off. So, but that is a point. Howard is not one of those places where people just take mistreatment lying down.
That party is true, but we're talking about people who are, and this is something I do not understand. I will never understand, who are motivated by something to chase a football up and down a damn field.
Oh, here we go. And now you're non-sports.
This is a vendetta against sports.
Right. This is the right.
Let me finish. They're motivated differently.
Here comes the rant.
What you saw in the A building And the people who did that in particular were motivated by personal gripes that they had with the administration.
Mm-hmm.
So much so that they lied to get their peers to, quote, take over the A-building. Two different motivations here. So they want to be able to chase that damn football up and down the field.
Now, Tiff, I will say, to your point, football players are wired a bit differently. Some of them crave that kind of environment. You got to be a different kind of cat to run into people full speed as hard as you can on purpose over and over and over again.
I understand it.
So, well, a lot of us understand it. Most of America does because they watch it.
Listen, and look, and it doesn't just translate to the football field, because I got a coworker who he played football in college. It wasn't for HBCU, but you can't even have like a regular passionate conversation with him because it's like he's back in the huddle. They just wired differently, right?
They think differently. Those caliber of athletes in that sport, they think differently. So their interpretation and reaction to abusive behavior or even something bordering it is a little bit different. It's like cats that are in the military.
It's like Stockholm syndrome. Wait, let's not talk about things that happened in the news this week.
What you think is abuse, they may say, well, that's motivation. And the interesting thing about it, before we close this out, is that when you look on Facebook and look at some of the comments, the people who are weighing in the most are former football players saying these guys just aren't the same. These guys are cut from a different cloth.
And that's been Howard Twitter's little argument all day. Something else popped off on the timeline between an alumna and a current quad girl, and the general consensus is, okay, yeah, they both wrong, but these newer Howard kids, they a little different. Everybody done got a participation trophy, and now they sensitive. So, like, I mean, context matters, but at the end of the day, these kids are a little different.
Interesting thing at the Mecca. But what I will say, and what I do want to emphasize, is Howard has already said they're investigating it. They're taking it seriously. So, as we wait for more information, it's good that this, we haven't looked at this and days have gone by, at least since the story surfaced. And, we haven't heard from the institution. We haven't heard from the leadership. So that's something to take heart about. When we come back, we're going to talk about the recent run of big time giving from rich black folks to HBCUs, something positive that we should look out for. Digest After Dark. We'll be right back. Digest After Dark, and we're back talking about Alonzo Mourning's transcripts. But now we're going to get into a conversation about something that's really positive. Last week at a UNCF fundraiser in Charlotte, Oprah Winfrey shows up. Oprah Winfrey tells a crowd of people that they have effectively raised $1.4 million and she's going to match it. Boom, just like that, to support student scholarships at UNCF institutions. And this is a couple of weeks after two guys in the Midwest, two brothers, announced that they were giving $2 million to Morehouse to support student access and debt elimination and some other things. And that's on the heel, obviously, of Robert Smith's historic gift to Morehouse, which we now know in recent weeks isn't going to go straight to Fannie Mae. The gift was actually made to Morehouse, and Morehouse will disperse the funds. So Morehouse will get the credit for a $34 million gift. That's the largest single gift from a single donor in HBCU history. The school will get the credit for it. So it offers up the question, are we seeing the tide turn on rich and influential black folks really helping out HBCUs and really getting into the mode of philanthropy? I'm remiss because I've only brought up like the $1 million gifts, but that's not the ones like, $100,000 from James Harden at Texas Southern, Stephen A. Smith. What was that? Was it $100,000 or $50,000 to Winston?
It's about that. It's somewhere along those lines.
It's something. It's a big gift.
They also named the scholarship in his
right.
name,
He said,
it's a big donation as well.
So it was a big donation. So we've had some celebrities. Chris Paul is giving money to Winston. You got people giving money to HBCUs. The $1 million gifts obviously get the credit, But we've seen a pretty strong run of philanthropy to HBCUs, not just in recent weeks or months, but over the last couple of years as private gifts and grants to HBCUs has increased. We're now over about $320 million collectively among the 100 HBCUs, at least through 2017 through federal data. So what do you guys think about the celebrity factor playing into this and the notion that the philanthropy or the philanthropic support of black colleges is on the rise? What's your reaction and why do you think that is?
Something within me is saying that, well, one, I want to give credit to Alpha Kappa Alpha for stepping out there, because
forgot about them. That's my bad.
That entire campaign that they did, and they did it again.
They've done it twice.
Where they
right?
raised that much money in a single day, and then was like, oh yeah, we're gonna pass this out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna get it. I mean, that they are known as an organization. That I wouldn't necessarily say like celebrities, so it's a little slightly different. What I'm wondering that's peaking with all this are these very wealthy black people now changing their tone as far as looking at the well-being of black students and their college experiences. So I wonder how much things such as University of Missouri impact or led to this moment. I wonder how much the situations where we've seen the young lady at Yale and that story coming in the news about people being accosted at the campuses they work at. Mm-hmm. I mean, they go to school at for being black. I wonder how much of that is influencing a lot of this, where it's not like, oh, it's important that we are around people who look like us, that care about us, that care about our well-being. It will be interesting to research to just kind of figure out what is the purpose of it all of a sudden now.
Wait, were you done here?
Yeah, I was going to say you're sighing like you.
I was. My bad.
Tiffany is sighing like she's bothered by it.
I'll give one quick comment though. Or is it because everybody all of a sudden now wants to do something now that Bill Cosby's in jail?
Oh, don't do that.
I went there. I'm sorry.
Don't do that. Tiffany, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, I like this responsible energy. In my mind, it makes me think that, or in my mind, I think that this is how you stay in your lane. You got money. You have feelings that you have. And it looks like to me that you're acting on your feelings by paying into an institution or a collective institution that supports how you think and how you feel, if that makes sense. Like, yeah, you're Oprah or yeah, you're whoever. You're not necessarily a thought leader and a champion that's like right there in it, but you can finance it. And I really appreciate that. Instead of just saying, oh, I want to do something, I'm going to do it. And you don't necessarily have the knowledge. You don't necessarily have the insight. You don't necessarily have the career experience, but you have the monies. And you're putting the monies towards a collective institution where, hey, I can see where this is going to go, and I like it.
I have a theory about this, and I don't know how right or wrong I am, but I'm trying to trace it back. Is it going to be what?
Cynical.
No. At least I hope it doesn't come across that way.
Okay.
The theory is that at moments in history where white power structures show off and try to show their power, we culturally get blacker. And what I mean by that is we start doing front-facing things to showcase black pride and black affirmation and black support. So Black Panther Party, Black Panther Revolution was a reaction to something. Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee were reactions to something. Sit-in movements were reactions to something. Even if you took it to the 90s, if you think about a different world, well, it was one kind of show in 88, 89. And then when you see George Bush and you start to see Rodney King, the tone of the show got dramatically different. And they started to talk about apartheid, and they started to talk about racism, and they started to talk about discrimination. So I think that with those natural inclinations that we have culturally, that when we feel that the pressure of racism and oppression is starting to ratchet up, so we start to ratchet up too, that this is an extension of that. That Eric, this is to your point, and Tiffany, yours too. The more racism we see in the world, I think that you start to see well-off and affluent black people saying, okay, well, we're seeing all these signs in public about how people don't like us. Then let me put one out there to balance this out. Because it could have been, I mean, this, some of these black folks have been rich for a long time. So when you ask the question, well, why now? Right? Like, Oprah has given millions to Morehouse, sending guys to college. And she did that quiet as kept on the low. You didn't know that. Right. You didn't know that until she was quitting her show.
And still people didn't know that until she had to clap back like, girl, I've been doing this.
I've been doing this. Like, you didn't know that Oprah had sent that many brothers to school until they were walking to the stage on her final show. You didn't know it. So there is something, and I think that there's something to be said that you didn't know it. But so people with money for a long time have been given to HBCUs quietly, not in huge numbers, but substantial numbers. And they've not been announcing it. It's not been a public thing.
And we don't know if that's because that's how they wanted it or not. And
probably that's how they wanted it. Probably. Now you can find it out unless they demanded it's anonymous. But I can tell you right now, Will and Jada Smith, they give money to Morgan every year. The school doesn't do a press release about that. I mean, Baltimore Ravens have given Morgan money. I mean, and I'm just using Morgan because that's my alma mater. But there are a lot of influential people that give money to Morgan every year, and it could be on the condition like, don't make a big deal about this. But the big deal is what makes it a big deal. If you understand what I'm saying.
I do.
So
I think the bigger deal, actually, in those moments, to a degree, is the fact that they don't want the fanfare.
But the fanfare, I think, is what cultivates more.
It does for other people to feel like they should give.
That they should, yes. Right.
But at the same time, if they're giving just because they're intrinsically motivated to give,
that's a big deal.
I mean, you can't make somebody want to give. Like, you need a cheerful giver. Like, if you're not giving anything because you want to give it, don't give it. That's honestly how I feel. I ain't doing nothing if I don't want to do it. But people aren't motivated like that always. Or people might feel they have to do something. Or it's just like with football players. Why are they running up and down a court?
Okay.
I mean,
a court. And we're back to that. It's a field, not a court.
It depends on your motivation. And clearly some people aren't motivated.
It is a sport like anything else.
Right.
But I think that you see the tide turning because we're reacting to this racism. Now, I would hate to give Trump any of the credit for this. One, because he doesn't deserve it. Two, because I think that I don't want to. It doesn't rest well with me that it took this to bring this out of us. I'm hoping that that's not the case, because racism didn't start with Donald Trump. But if we're starting to be more aggressive against it because of Donald Trump, that's a problem. Because one day he won't be here, and racism will still be just as bad.
Well, that's actually the point that I wanted to get at. That's the larger implicating point of all of this, is that, like, it's easy to be pro-black when overt racism is in your face.
Right.
But a lot of people ain't pro-black until, like, a lot of people are pro-black when it's convenient, because then you don't look like you're going against the majority of black people. And I say that's part of this entire thing too, right? So, like, prime example, it's like now all of a sudden, like, if a school decides like, oh, we're gonna become a HBCU for a weekend, and somebody calls it out, it's like, man, why are you being divisive to us as black people? It's like, no, because that's not the same conversation. It's like,
Now,
oh,
see,
now you want
you and I have debated that before. See, I don't have a problem with that, and I think you're 100% on target because it fits into this.
You see what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
oh, so now you want the benefit of claiming your blackness because it benefits you for those the typical. But when things aren't so obviously bad,
When it's not an obvious struggle, right?
Yeah, when it's not an obvious struggle, you're nowhere to be found. It's like, yes, Oprah's been giving money for years, but you know who can speak about this more than anybody else? He just be able to speak about this? Tennessee State.
Right.
Because if you ask them how much they've given, how much he's given, you might start hearing chirps.
Whoop. Don't say that.
I mean, listen. If I knew that my richest, my most wealthy alumna has funded hundreds of people to attend other HBCUs,
I would investigate what happened to her while she was on my campus and how can I make it right.
You probably can.
That's number one.
You probably
that's
can.
Number one.
And you got to eat that L. Come on, you have to eat that L. Every time you see Oprah cut a check and it's not to you, you remember you don't want to create another Oprah.
Now watch this though.
You would hope that.
You will hope that, and you're 100% correct, Tiff. But there's also a difference between having a gripe against a school and having a gripe against people at a school.
Yep.
Because if we're going to have that conversation, a whole lot of people are out here saying they're justifying to not because one thing happened with one disgruntled person in a financial aid office.
See, and that's something.
I don't believe in that though. I don't, because if I don't never give another dime to Howard, I'm going to give to a Howard student. Period.
Yes, I mean, and that makes sense. But what I'm saying is, a lot of people take that to another level. For example, I don't like the president of Morgan, the direction that my school is going in. I don't. I don't like David Wilson, the president of Morgan State University. I don't like him. Okay, as a leader. Therefore, I'll give more money to Alpha Phi Alpha and my church before I will to Morgan. When he leaves, then I'm gonna try to write a $10,000 check. I'm gonna tell you that right now. Sorry.
Where is?
Because guess what? As wrong as I may be, as ignorant as that is, it's my money.
It is.
It's also not your responsibility to like. You don't have to like the president of your university. Like, that's not how this works,
right? but I think that we need to be clear, because I think people want to shame people into saying, well, it doesn't matter if you like the lady in financial aid. It doesn't matter if you don't like the president. It doesn't matter if the football team doesn't win. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. And to pretend as if the struggle of the schools can change your personal opinion. Because guess what? All you can do is shame me. You cannot make me go in my pocket, pull out that card, and cash at Morgan. You cannot. So you can shame me all you want. But the truth of the matter is, at least I'm not going to hide it from you. I'm telling the board. I'm telling the development office. I'm telling the VP of advancement, I don't like him. When he leaves, I'll be back. While he's here, you won't see me, because I'm not going to, at my fullest, invest in a product that I know is being led astray.
Right.
And there are a lot of alumni who are saying that, who make that case. I totally identify with them. But the question is, when you don't give it all on that auspice, I'll give some. I won't give as much as I can. You won't get the best of me. You're going to get Mr. Mediocrity from me. That may be $1,000 or whatever it'll be. You ain't gonna get 5 or 10 from me. Not today.
I mean, that's.
So, I mean, and that's something that people have to deal with. You have to deal with it. Now, it is under the auspices of you can't please everybody, but you don't, until you decide that politics and relationships and culture is not as important as activating the people who you know have a platform, who you know have resources. That's what you're going to get. Now, at least the way I justify it in my sick mind is, at least I tell you, Because there's hundreds of people, thousands of people like me all around the country that don't never say a word about how I'm not giving to such and such, and here's why. So I think that it is to say that it's positive that we have more folks that are overcoming that whatever the issue is that Oprah may have had with TSU or anybody else, she's saying, well, let me jump into this thing where we're helping out the black colleges. And we're seeing a bunch of NBA players do it. We're seeing a bunch of executives do it. We're seeing a bunch of people who are brokering opportunities for HBCUs to get more resources, not even just from a philanthropic standpoint. But
shout out to HBCU Brain Trust, by the way.
It is to say that is just the first step. You're breaking down a critical wall where people who may or may not have close alignment with a school are finding the value in the school. The next step is, how do you break through to those folks who are mad? That's where your money is.
Yeah, it is.
That's where your money is. The people who are mad.
But it's going to require both sides, though.
And I'm going to tell you, if you don't fix it, they're going to stay mad until they're about to die. Because that's when people like me will have a come to Jesus moment and say, I've been mad at my school for too long. I'm 70 years old. My kids and my babies are all out of the house. It's just me and my wife or me and my husband sitting here looking at each other when we could be at the football game.
Right.
It's time. I need to come on home. And that's when and now, first of all, if you have a school to come back to, it is not as you remembered.
Listen, and because all these points matter too, right? Because I don't want to just keep harping on Oprah. Harp on Oprah.
Well played.
But at the same time, nobody she mad at still at TSU.
But it's the notion. It's the notion of it. It's the notion of it.
You see what I'm saying? You have a gripe against Morgan State with the current executive leadership.
Correct.
That's a different situation.
Right.
You got people up here talk about, because this happened in financial aid, people ain't even working there no more.
He did.
You got they messed up my housing. People ain't even working. It's come on now. And then it's and this is the big one. It's man, I already paid loans. I'm yeah, you're paying back the actual people.
You're paying back the government.
You're paying back the actual people that paid for your degree.
Right.
That you use every single day.
Right.
Which is not the same as it's not like the school itself gave you a loan and they're requiring you to pay them back.
The issue, you know what the issue is? There's a lot of people that are mad at places like Stanford and MIT and a whole bunch of stuff. That people, their alumni giving rates aren't 70%. They're not 70%, but the different thing is one person can make a world of difference. If one person can come through and say, I'm gonna give you $1 billion over 10 years, like Bloomberg can give to Hopkins. Yeah. That's a big difference, man. We don't have that kind of wealth. So the people who can give $1,000, $5,000, you need them to come through. And if those folks are mad, you got a big problem, because it ain't but so many millionaires, black millionaires out here. You got to get to the ones who can give you that $5,000 check. You got to get to them. I know a brother right now who wants to give money to Coppin. They won't pick up his phone call. They won't return his emails.
Wait, what?
I'm not gonna call his name. This brother,
State, what are y'all doing? Because we know that you use.
He wants to do it. He wants to do it in the name of his sister who passed away. She was a Coppin grad. Whoever is not picking up the phone at Coppin doesn't know that they're ignoring Russell Simmons' uncle.
You said you wasn't gonna name drop.
I didn't say his name.
Come on.
I didn't say. You are not. Let me put it out there. Coppin State, you are ignoring Russell Simmons' uncle, who could have his money, who got money of his own, and probably could talk to Russell. So you got to, we got to do a little bit better. Well, we're increasing it, but there is still a legion. There's a legion of people who are mad and displaced and disenchanted. And if you don't find a way to get to them, we're going to be relying on millionaires. And guess what? They don't do that every year. Oprah ain't giving you 1.4 every year.
Right.
Listen, Oprah, look, And the thing, and I think the larger conversation I'm talking about the millionaires that don't have what you would consider a direct core connection to, right? Robert Smith, he went to Cornell. Chris Paul, his connection is the fact that he'll tell you he's like the only person in his family who did not graduate from an HBCU.
Right.
So even something, and long before the money was donating, you still got to sit back and talk about bringing the pro-am to Winston-Salem State and dropping a check while doing it.
That's right.
Right.
Yep.
Putting on a national stage, wearing gear from Tradition Ever Since, highlighting different HBCU programs.
Free advertising.
Free advertising. These are things that people do. The Diddy's.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know what Diddy's done, but I'm pretty sure Diddy's cut a couple checks. The fact that there's a line about Howard Homecoming in a Biggie song that gets played who knows how many times this year. Let alone it's just little small things like that don't have to take place. But if the schools don't themselves rid themselves of their own egos, because that's part of it, and if two, people aren't having real conversations about, hey man, you use this degree every single day, you can't help a student that's trying to do what you do,
mm-hmm.
come from where you came from to get to where you trying to go.
Hey man,
I think everybody's looking at themselves for real.
Y'all in the Lord got to keep working on me, because till Lord David leave, I'm not coming home.
Donate to your program.
I'm not coming home. I'm sorry. When we come back, hopefully, Fred and Tiff gonna pray for me during the break. When we come back, we will wrap up with some kind of conversation on something else. That's just After Dark. We'll be right back. Digest After Dark, and we're back. We're going to get into a conversation about a recent speech at Talladega College from rapper, activist, social critic David Banner. And this was pretty controversial in the sense that he made a lot of remarks about, how to empower Black America. A lot of, speech time dedicated to, what can we do to better ourselves. But the controversy stems around, some comments he made directly to a white attendee at the program. Some controversial remarks about, why do Black students train at HBCUs and go work for the oppressor? To the point that Talladega issued an apology and said that they condemned, his making all attendees or some attendees at the event uncomfortable, and that they would do a better job of vetting speakers going forward. Now, this is certainly not the first time we've had HBCUs at the center of controversy for controversial speakers. Every time Minister Louis Farrakhan has been on the campus, even if he says nothing that's controversial, the fact that his past has been marked with some controversial statements comes up all the time. It goes back to speakers like Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, who were controversial in their own day. And there's a unique history with speakers like that when they were getting booed by students on HBCU campuses. Because at the time, HBCU campuses or HBCU students were more militant and thought that either they were too extremist or they were too pacifist. So we got, our sector has a lot of a complex history with outspoken folks. Whom history has redeemed as transformative in American culture. But I don't know yet if David Banner will be among that crew. But how do you feel about Banner? I guess the reception for his remarks. Obviously, you on the best side of things, you could receive them as pro-Black. On the worst side, you could say that they were racially divisive. This is in the heart of Alabama. So, Tiff, what do you think?
Like I said before we came back, where is it where we aren't oppressed somewhere? Are we not supposed to make $1? Everybody, especially if you work in the South, and especially if you work for your state or your commonwealth, you really have to weigh your options when it comes to which oppressive check you gonna work toward every 2 weeks. Like, I don't understand. Like, and he's saying this as somebody who's made his dollar. You got your money. You could go anywhere and talk your big. Well, I can't curse, but and talk your mess, and you still got money. You still cash that check to Talladega. But you want to say, y'all doing all this, but y'all gonna go work for the oppressor. Sir, come on. This is America. And it's only 13% of us here, and we don't have collective wealth like that. Come on. And even if we did, some black people, have the mind of the oppressor anyway. So, like, what are you really saying? And what are you going to do? Like, now that you said this, what are you going to do to make more opportunities where people don't necessarily have to make their money from the oppressor? I mean, you still got to pay taxes unless you're paying under the table. But still, like, all of this, you're not escaping oppression.
Right, but we can reconcile the fact that there are some truths, and there's a difference between truths being told publicly to diverse audiences and the way that they're told. We know that. I mean, that I don't know that because that there are things that are true that it makes Banner more or less or right or wrong for the way he delivered his message in that part of the country at that time and on that campus. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Eric, what do you think?
You remember the beginning of
Y'all are
Drake's,
doing a lot of science tonight. These are some heavy topics.
you remember at like the beginning of Drake's Duppy freestyle when he was going at Pusha T, and he was like, the audacity, like, just like, who is Lavelle Crump to even be able to make these statements right now? Now,
I guess a concerned black man.
I'm going to contextualize this, right? So, like, a couple years back, Talladega got a whole bunch of bad press because they decided to go perform during Trump's administration's,
yeah,
like, their inauguration parade. So, like, there's like a certain level of presence to this kind of sort of where he was making these statements at, right? And I think it's important to kind of start with that context. But I still want to, like, go back and focus on the former SGA president of Southern University, Lavelle Crump, because I'm not going to call him. He's a well-educated man, so the fact that he's still going by his rapper name at this point, I'm looking at him like, you sound like a fool, and you sound even more like a fool at this given moment. I respect him and I respect what he's done, but one, you didn't pull up to Talladega with no internship opportunities, not a check, no job prospects for the people that you're actually telling to go do better about it. You're not providing any options or resources for them to actually find a way to be employed by a somewhat wealthy black person, such as yourself, so that they don't have to go work for the quote-unquote white man. So that's my first point, right? Because it's real easy to pull up to a school and tell them what they're not doing, and yet you come with no money, no way of influencing, no way of impacting other than using your words, and you're thinking that somebody should give you a check just for that.
The students got on Twitter. The students got on Twitter and made it seem like Talladega cut the mic off. I haven't seen that in the coverage, but that's what they said. Like, at a certain point, they just cut him off.
For me, it really doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, we're giving you a platform. We gave you a platform, and you're probably going to get something in response. Like, like, there's a good chance that, especially if you came with these spicy comments, that you ain't pull up without getting the bag in some way, shape, or form. Right? A gift, something in kind, who knows, right? The free ability to perform at homecoming next year, who knows, right? Like, you don't pull up with these spicy comments unless you got something that's coming in your pocket, right?
Right.
Beyond that, I'm still trying to understand, if we are literally 13% of the population, maybe 14.1, right? They HBCUs educate at minimum 9% and at maximum 13.1% of all black college students in the entire country. If the majority of minority business owners that are black and identify as black literally own businesses that have less than 2 employees. Who is going to be the people, like who is hiring all these black people and paying them a living wage and benefits and the ability to get themselves from one station, from one social class to another social class?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think what a lot of, like, quote unquote pro black people, could I say quote unquote because you can't be pro black without common sense. Uh, I think what a lot of people don't understand is that there's a big difference between white validation and white resources.
Well, let's talk about that real quick because on that same note, it's interesting that you bring that up because Simmons College of Kentucky, an HBCU in the heart of Kentucky, is hosting the first or the inaugural American Descendants of Slaves Conference, the ADOS conference. Is that a good
So,
look?
American descendants of slavery.
Yeah, they hosting the
I'm sorry,
ADOS.
what happened?
They hosting the ADOS
So,
conference.
yeah, the American descendants.
Yep.
First of all, I'm going to say this publicly on the show. If you are listening and everything that Ados is saying right now, I need you to read actual books, not just their website.
Don't do that.
And no, I'm
See,
sorry.
now you're coming through with the spicy comments.
No, because Ados is literally anti-Pan African, point blank. Period. It just
And
is.
they don't even realize it. Or maybe they do
Oh
and they
no,
don't care.
they realize it because it's literally being funded by a conservative background.
Oh, yeah.
Go read some. Yeah, go read like
No,
that.
I can't, because every time I start, I just be like, yikes.
No. I'm telling everybody who's believing it.
Oh.
Like, literally speaking, ADO supports MAGA. That's inflammatory, but go and look it up. Like, if you actually do some diving, it's like that, right?
Tiffany, are
But
you going to go
I
to the
don't.
conference?
Why are you playing with me?
All right, go ahead, Eric. I'm sorry, Fred.
But here's the thing, though. I don't blame them for hosting it. You want to know why I don't blame them for hosting it? Because at the end of the day, who else is putting money into the pockets of Simmons College?
Papa John's.
Okay.
Papa John's giving
So,
him some
like,
money.
now, hosting
If
something
it's
does
going to
not
make the
mean,
edit.
look, hosting something does not mean that they actually support or endorse what's being said. We had an entire conversation about Dillard University having Candace Owens, David Duke. Like,
What is going on?
look, because all these things are related, right? There's a bit, like, so when I say the difference between white validation and white resources,
Yeah.
there's a big difference, right? No, there is literally zero black millionaires and billionaires in this country, in the existence of this country, since this country's been founded, that have become millionaires or billionaires without, by only getting paid by black people.
Mm-hmm.
So it is literally nonsensical to sit here and act like black people are only supposed to like only work within our community when resources are not equal.
Right.
I was having a conversation with some people earlier today talking about black life before the end of Jim Crow and post Jim Crow as far as integration and segregation. And I said it's like the real issue with separate but equal is the fact that there was not that we were separate, but because the fact that resources, access, and money was not equal.
Right.
Black people would not have been fighting for integration if everything was equal. So if you want to keep us separate and have everything unequal, then we want things to be together.
Then we got to be all together then. Because, and Eric, you talked about this before. Two things can be true at once. You can be a racist and you can help black people for whatever motivation that may be.
Look, what was the guy in South Carolina? Congressman for years, who actually was pushing for separate but equal. He was like, "Look, I don't want to be around black people. Give them the money and resources they need to keep them away from me.
Keep them away from me." Strom Thurmond,
right? Right. That was literally his. What was his name? I can't think of the guy.
Strom Thurmond.
Right, yes.
Yep.
Like, you know what? I respect him. I respect him for being outwardly racist as he was and willing to put money up so that black people can stay away from white people. I have no problem with him believing that, right? Because at least he was making things, from his perspective, literally separate and equal. But to sit here and tell black people, oh, why you going like get a degree from this black school and go work for a white person, because the black people that you want to go work for, they can't hire anybody beyond themselves and their mother that's doing their accounting.
Whew, that's heavy, man.
And she paying fried chicken. Like, let's be clear.
So,
come on now.
It done got into the money at this point. And then the other thing is that, when a lot of predominantly white institutions bring controversial speakers all the time, and they get criticized and they get protested and they get covered in the media, but it's a little bit different when black folks do it. So I don't know. It's so ironic to me that we want so much to be a part of American humanity, and at the same time we want to be so separate from it. You don't want us to be looked at as second-class citizens or separate and all these other things, but then everything that we do to be separate, to be insulated. And that's okay if that's what you want, but then don't say everybody who's separate is less than. I mean, you can't have it both ways. That's difficult. And even more so economically. So, I wish I had a copyright license to play some David Banner right now. That would be good. But I don't. So we will cut off again. Frat, thank you again for all your Inside 06. Tiff, you are not thrown off the show. You successfully completed this episode. And you are not attending the ADOS conference, right? That is in Louisville.
Stop playing with me.
Okay, so it's up in the air if she's going to attend or not. Again, are we?
I'll pull up. They ain't gonna like me though.
I'm not sure if we're doing this again next week, but or this week, but we certainly will next week. Again, thank you for everybody.
No, we're not doing next week.
Okay, sounds good to me.
It's home. What do you mean?
Homecoming. Nobody's gonna be sober enough to do this show.
Right.
Hey, yo, first of all, quick shout out because it's homecoming season, because you got to include Bowie State, Morgan State, and Howard are all in together. Like, they all got theirs next weekend.
They're on the same day.
Also,
that's
Kentucky State does
terrible.
too.
That is terrible.
Like, that's all within 45 minutes. That is a problem.
Oh, Morgan and Howard homecoming the same day? That's awful.
Yes, it is.
Terrible. Well, shout out to everybody going to try to make their way up and down 295 that day. Then try to get from Baltimore to Bowie to DC. That's
you better
pick one. You better pick one and stick with it.
Shout out to everybody flying from Waldorf.
The fly from Waldorf. Thank y'all so much for listening to Digest After Dark. We will do this again sometime when we're all sober and prepared to talk.
Or we can be drunk. Like, I really do want. I don't
think that we should do a drunk episode on Howard University Radio.
We don't have to send that one to Howard University.
I don't think that we should do that, but maybe
we don't have to send that one to Howard.
Maybe we'll examine the possibilities. So this has been Digest After Dark. Check you next time. Peace.
Excellent.